Season 2, Episode 1 of Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, and with me is your other host, Carla Moore. I feel like we kind of need to reintroduce ourselves, maybe for those who are just jumping in and just listening to us for the first time. And also, I feel like I haven't seen your face in ages since we took a little break.
It's been 3 whole weeks.
3 whole weeks, and a brand new season. And we live in separate states. We've each brought up boys in our home and been involved in ministry for years and really good friends, and just thought it would be a good idea to have a podcast that encourages people to look up and see Christ in all of life and know that no matter what's going on in the world, all the chaos and debates and whatever else you might be running across, that God is in control, He is faithful, and we just need to keep our eyes on Him. So that's the premise behind this. Yes, thank God for that. That's the premise behind our podcast. So how have you been?
Been doing well. Nice and hot. It's 108 today.
Oh no.
But I don't know if anybody can hear the roar, but there's a roar in here from a window unit. So I've got air conditioning. I can't complain about anything. We just park under a tree and go from in the air conditioning in the car to the air conditioning inside the buildings, and we're all good.
108.
Yeah.
So is this about as hot as it's going to get?
July and August are usually a little bit hotter. So we're kind of starting early, but we'll pull out of here, leave Texas for Colorado at the end of July. So right. I'm always thankful leaving Texas before August hits. That's helpful for us. Pray for the rest of the people left behind. But like we've said before, I'd rather be hot than cold. I can cool off inside, and it's just, I love summer. I love summer. Every time we've been doing a lot of work outside, just clearing some cedar and got all the scars to prove it. But we'll sit outside, at 9:00, I can still see the sun. It's down, but it's just bright outside. And I don't know, there's just something about my mood is so much lighter. And I love the daylight and being able to get outside after supper and work in the yard or go for a bike ride or whatever. So summertime is my favorite.
Mine too. I feel the same way. It's my season, my favorite season. So I know
you've pulling lots of stuff out of the ground.
Oh, I know. Things are really coming in, and Neil and I have this little game that we kind of do in the morning. We go out and harvest green beans, and we always say, this definitely has to be our biggest harvest yet, for sure. And then the next day we go out, no, this is definitely the biggest harvest for sure. And we go behind each other, because the leaves can hide green beans. We have them on a trellis. So they're hanging down all around, but the leaves can hide them. And so we go behind each other. He does one side and I do the other. Yeah. And then we kind of switch and check to see which ones we've missed. And we said, it's the only thing we like where we actually catch each other missing something. You missed these. Oh, good. More.
Yeah. So are you freezing them or canning them, or what are you?
I'm canning them. Okay. We're eating some fresh. And I used to boil the life out of them, but now I've discovered steaming them. They're so perfect. And they cook in no time at all. And so we're eating them fresh, we're canning them, and I'm going to make some baby food for Rich out of some of them. So just all the good things are coming in, and I'm just savoring every moment of it.
Well, you posted something yesterday about you brought in a bunch of things, and what you bring in is what you decide to do. So you don't know in the morning what you'll be working on. That's kind of fun. It's like Christmas.
Yeah, sometimes I do. I think, one day this week I'm going to blah, blah, blah. But usually I just go out there and see what looks good and kind of get inspired by it. And if it's a lot of great herbs, I'll do something with herbs. It's a lot of produce, I'll do something with that. And, dry some flowers, hang some flowers, whatever.
I bet it smells good in your house.
My house smells really good. Yes, it does. I have herbal salts drying in sheet pans and bath salts drying in different sheet pans, and flowers hanging and herbs hanging. And
well, I've learned a lot just by watching your posts, so it's fun.
Thanks. Well, today I sent off my registration form to register as what do they call it? Like a home-based processor or something like that. So I can start selling some things.
Where are you going to sell it?
Not just from out of my home. So our cottage laws say you just pay a fee to register, and there's certain foods that you can legally sell out of your home, but you can't sell, like I can't go sell them at a restaurant or something like that, but I can sell them out of my home. I can deliver them, or I can have people come pick them up.
Okay.
So I did that today. So that was the first hurdle. The second hurdle is actually getting up enough nerve to do it. I kind of have this nightmare feeling of, okay, here's my special things that I want you to buy. And it's like crickets,
No.
or the only people that are going to buy them are going to be my friends. And I'll be like, I can't sell you this. Here, just take it.
Yeah. Well, what about an Etsy shop? Is it something like that where you could, or do they do things like that on Etsy?
I haven't even looked into that. I really didn't want to fool with mailing and packaging and stuff like that.
Well, Facebook Marketplace too might be something you think about.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that would be local. People would know you, and you could say either pick up or delivery in town or whatever. Anyway, just something to think about.
Yeah. So
well, fun.
Yeah.
Well, how's the barn coming along?
The barn is great. And the big news is we're pretty sure we already have our cow.
Really?
Yes. Jeremy found one for us in Upton, Kentucky. She hasn't given birth yet. She's beautiful. She has a dark brown face. Neil and I have decided she looks like a peaches. So that may be her name.
Yeah. So she's a mama, but she's pregnant still. You're going to have
and she hasn't birthed before. Okay. So we're going to go up there soon and look her over, and then in another couple of weeks, check again. But the guy that we're getting her from breeds and shows jerseys. So he's going to make sure everything looks good and break her and all these kinds of things. And then he thinks around the 1st of August, we'll be able to bring her home.
Right. Just a little over a month.
Yeah. So that gives me a month to get my act together.
Well, how much more do you have to do on the barn?
The barn, really nothing. I mean, the barn is good to go. I think we're going to try and build a stanchion. I don't really even know how to say that word.
I don't even know what it is.
The thing you put the cow in while you're milking her, it kind of locks itself around her neck to hold her in place. And but really, it's just a matter of fencing. Neil was mowing the other day, and he's already leaving the portion in the back unmowed so we can grow up that grass. But technically, as far as, except for fencing, we could just go ahead and have her here. But for me, it's just, I'm currently reading 2 books on keeping a home dairy cow. And I got a pedicure the other day, and I had one of them reading this book on cows while I was getting a pedicure. I'm a little highlighter. So I was going through.
I bet she's never had anyone in her chair reading a book on dairy cows before.
Nor have I ever done that before. There have been so many firsts, but with this whole venture, but we're very excited about that. Yeah. So,
well, you're about to get busier.
I know.
That's exciting though.
Yeah. The guy we're buying from said he would throw in a couple of bull calves so that we could do calf sharing, with her, since she'll be a brand new mama, and this will be the very beginning of her calving. Then she's going to have tons of milk coming in, more than we need or can handle, especially as beginners. So
she'll have enough milk for her baby and for y'all and for some other calves too.
Well, I knew that you could do it with 1 calf. I didn't know you could do it with 2, but I have to look into that some more.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, fun.
So what have you been doing? Have you found some wonderful treasures while you've had all kinds of time? So I expect you to wow me.
Well, I can't wow you. I found a few little things, but not anything exciting. I did find John a pair of brand new dress shoes. That's really exciting, isn't it? He's pretty excited.
I'm sure he was.
Well, here's one of the, maybe someday we'll do an episode on this. One of those differences between men and women is that he basically wears 2 pairs of shoes. One when he's home or hiking or whatever, and the other when he's teaching or preaching, whatever. And
I just pictured Mr. Rogers changing a sweater.
That's pretty much what it is. And the ones that he wears when he's hiking, his hiking boots, these are his 3rd pair.
Of the
of
same kind.
exactly the same shoe.
Yeah.
They're not even a different color.
Hmm.
I mean, the same color. I'm like, I don't know
Boring.
how many pairs of shoes I have. And I'm
Yeah.
not Imelda Marcus, and whoever doesn't know who that is. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't know who that
Okay,
is.
so I'm older than you, not a whole lot older than you. She
You're
was,
tons older than me.
not that much. No. Anyway, she was known for she was like the president of, see, now I'm going to show my ignorance, one of those southern countries. She was known for how many shoes she had. And
Okay.
her people lived in poverty while she had all these
Oh
shoes.
no.
Yeah. Anyway, I have lots of shoes, and most of them came from Goodwill, but I still have lots of shoes. But he has basically two pairs of shoes. He has a pair of boots too, like cowboy boots. Where was I going with that?
So
The
we
pair of
may
shoes.
be boorish at times, but he's boring. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
when it
if you're
comes to
going to
shoes,
buy the
anyway.
same pair of shoes, at least get a different color.
Right?
But no, he says, why? If it's what I like, why should I change it?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I found a pair of dress shoes, and they're brand new, Cole Haan with the white sole that's popular right now, which I don't really care much for. But I guess that's kind of one of those fashion things that
It'll
I'm
probably
getting
grow
too
on
old
us.
for
They always
fashion.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So that's I haven't found anything exciting for the house. So, but I really haven't done a whole lot, honestly. I haven't. We've been working in the yard, and I mean, you've been to our house, so like when you're driving up to the house, off to the left, there's real thick stands of cedars.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been thinning those out, getting rid of all the cedar so that the oaks can, I mean, when there's cedars like that, they just drink up all the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the roots, I mean, they choke out the oak trees. So we've been trying to clear those, and so
That
he
sounds
cuts
like a
them.
huge job.
It is. It's especially because of after the freeze, the trees died. A lot of them died, and so a lot of the branches are just dead. And I could literally just break off branches with my hands, but then we have to pick them up. I drag them to this huge burn pile. We can't burn right now because it's dry and windy and hot, but he's cutting with his chainsaw. But it's basically, I mean, we're getting exercise, and at the same time we're getting yard work done. So that's a lot what we do. We'll get up in the morning and sometimes do it before it gets really hot, or we'll do it at night. So it's just been nice to be home. We've been riding our bikes and
you got
sitting
back to bike
outside on the deck.
riding.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have. We've been
good.
doing quite a bit. I've already busted my tire, and he bent his tire. So we're having to do some bike maintenance. But anyway, it's been a nice, calm month after a lot of chaos. The month of June has been nice and calm. We've enjoyed it. We've had Livy quite a bit. We've been babysitting her, and we're going to have Jackson and Emmy and Clara this weekend. They're coming. Well, we're going down there on Friday, bringing them back, and we'll have them for several nights. And I can say, since this won't come out till after they're already almost gone, but John, there's a big cedar tree in the backyard that he kind of cut a little opening through the cedar, and then he cleared out around the trunk.
Oh, cute.
So that they're going to have this little fort in there, and he put a bunch of cedar poles together like a teepee inside there, and we're going to put some chairs and make a little table and things for them to play in. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Oh, y'all are so good at that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, John's got an imagination, so it's fun. I
was thinking about your property this morning because Neil started yelling from the kitchen this morning. We had cows in our backyard.
Where were they from?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes we can hear the cows on the other side of the fence, but they were literally in our backyard. Great big black Angus, I guess, right in our backyard, like close to the house. And we're both just going, what?
They heard there was a pretty girl coming.
I know. I said, now we know what it looks like to have cows on our property. It looks pretty natural to me, but we both said the same thing, that it reminded us of being at your house, because that's pretty common for cows just to walk through the backyard. And that's what they did. They just kind of walked through and grazed on the grass while they went through and left us some presents and moved on.
There's your fertilizer.
I know. I was kind of excited about that.
Yeah. Well, in all of our picking up the cedar trees, I've got gloves on, obviously, but I'll scoop everything together and throw it in the wheelbarrow. Half the time when I scoop it all together, I'm picking up a bunch of cow poop in there too, but it's Obviously,
You
it's not
said
fresh.
poop.
I know. I said season 2, episode 1. I'm already saying poop.
I know.
Just can't take the country out of the girl, can you?
Nope, no, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, we babysitted Rich for a few hours the other day, and I was telling him about this dessert that I had. We had Bible camp at Big Reedy, and Dana Simpson made this dessert. It was amazing.
That's all you have to say is Dana Simpson.
Dana Simpson, I know. We keep telling her you need to open a restaurant or a food truck or something, but she doesn't want to do that for some reason.
Yeah.
Do you like cream horns? Have you ever had cream horns?
Yes. It's like a kind of like a cream puff, sort of.
Yeah, they're round.
But it's, yeah. Okay.
Yes. All right. So I walked in the kitchen. I have to unfold this exactly the way it happened. I walked in the kitchen and Russell Simpson said, "You like cream horns, don't you?" Well, Dana had made this recipe called lazy cream horns and with puff pastry. And I tried one fully expecting it to be delicious, but not actually taste like a cream horn. It tasted exactly like a cream horn.
Why didn't you expect it to taste like a cream horn?
Well, because, oh, there goes a deer running. Because I don't know. You know how sometimes when because it's, I don't know, I guess because it's a store-bought
pastry.
Yeah, it's a store-bought kind of food that I don't know, but it, like the filling, everything tasted exactly like it. And it was so good. And so she ended up making them again that same week. And then when Carl and Emily brought Rich over here, I was telling them about it because I was so excited. And they ended up going to the store and bringing the groceries back.
So you could make some?
Yeah, and I did. And so we ate them then. And tomorrow night is my mom's birthday. And they're all coming over for dinner. And I'm going to do an Italian themed meal with homemade pasta and stuff. But I'm going to make that. My sister's going to be here and she loves cream puffs too. So I'm excited for her to try this dessert, but I'm going to make that dessert. And I can say all this because I will. But I can say all that because by the time this airs on Monday, the birthday meal will be passed.
Is so the cream, is it whipped cream, like literal
whole
heavy cream?
No, I'm almost afraid to tell you what's in it because it's
lard,
marshmallow cream. Yes, well, it's butter flavored shortening. Yeah, so it's definitely not good for you in any way, shape, or form,
except for your mood.
Vanilla, powdered sugar. You just beat so that gloriousness that together and pipe it. Yeah. Oh, yum. Yeah. Top it all with powdered. Oh, it's so good.
Sounds good. You'll have to share that recipe. Well, I know I sent you the picture, but for Father's Day for John, I was going to do a snackle box. You know, we talked about doing that on our last road trip and we didn't do it, but, you know, a tackle box that has snacks in it, snackle box. And so I went to Home Depot and I thought, you know, he doesn't really need a tackle box, but he could use this toolbox. So I made a snool box instead of a snackle box. Yeah, snool box. So it was fun. I just put all of his favorite snacks, which was really probably not the greatest thing for me to do because both of us trying to lose weight. But I put like Cliff Bars, and he loves Spice Drops and Spice Jelly Beans, and just little Werthers. His dad used to eat Werthers all the time, so John likes those. And anyway, that was fun.
I bet he loved it.
He did. And so he dumped it all out and put the toolbox out in the shed. But he's been sharing the snacks with me.
Oh, snool box.
Yeah, snool box. But we also have been playing pickleball.
I know, I'm so jealous.
We're going to play next time we're together. In fact, I bet you they'll have a pickleball court on the cruise.
Are you serious?
I just bet you they will, because it's such a popular thing, especially for our age people.
I know. Is it an old people sport?
Sort of, because you don't have to run quite as much.
Oh.
Cheryl Turner's the first one that told. I've never heard of it before. She said something.
Same. Yeah, same.
And here. She says you're running, you're getting all kinds of steps and running, but you're not running as far because the court is a lot smaller than a tennis court. It's kind of, to me, it feels like you're playing ping pong on the ping pong table because
Okay.
it's a smaller little, and it's like a wiffle ball. And anyway,
Okay.
we played last Monday. This is Wednesday, so it's been a week and a half, and John fell, and I'm pretty sure he cracked a rib because he got back up and he played again, but it just, when he's moving around now, it's hurting him a lot, and there's
Oh
just nothing you can
no.
do for it. You just have to let it heal, but we won't be
Oh
playing pickleball for
no.
a while. Yeah.
Oh, a pickleball injury.
I know it's bad enough that it's pickleball for old people, but to get a broken rib from it.
Well, I didn't know it was an old people sport. Here I've been mouthing off about wanting to learn this.
Not old people, it's for not young people. Well, but young people play it too. Wes and Terry also said they played in college, so it's been around a long time. I just had
Oh,
never heard of it
me
before
neither.
a few years ago.
My
Yeah.
sister bought us a set, I think for Christmas, and we still haven't even had a chance to open it.
It's a blast. It's so much fun.
That's what I keep hearing. I really want to learn.
Yeah. So next time we're together, we're going to play.
Yay.
So I was going to share, I know you and I talked a little bit about it, but Kathy Petrillo posted some little jokes. Some of them were so funny. Some of them I will not share here. You'll have to go look at yourself and see. But I was going to share some of the ones that I thought were the funniest.
Okay.
This was from the Washington Post. It says the Washington Post published the winning submissions to its yearly neologism. I have never heard that word before. Neologism contest, in which readers are asked to supply alternate meanings for common words. And here are some of the winners. The first one I thought wasn't as funny as some of the others, but just to give you an idea what it is, the word is coffee. So then someone has to come up with an alternate definition for what coffee is. So someone said that this is the person upon whom one coughs is the coffee. My favorite one was this one, flabbergasted. What do you think that is?
Well, I saw it already.
Oh, that's right. You did. Flabbergasted means that you're appalled over how much weight you have gained. And then there's abdicate. It's to give up all hope of ever having a flat stomach. And then there's a few others. I'm going to be boorish again, but this was funny. Flatulence.
Oh, no.
It's the emergency vehicle that picks you up after you are run over by a steamroller. It's a flatulence. Then balderdash is a rapidly receding hairline. And I'm going to leave it at that. If anybody else wants to see any more of them, they can go look it up themselves. But I giggled all the way through that.
I know, they were pretty clever.
Yeah, it was.
There are some funny, clever people in this world. You're one of them. You're a funny person.
I don't think so, but I like to laugh. So I like things like that make me laugh.
Well, do you have anything else you want to share before we jump into our...
No.
Okay.
I forgot to set a timer.
Well, I'm kind of eyeballing the time on the screen here.
Okay.
So for our first episode of season 2, we've been asking listeners for questions, and we had some really great responses. I was pleasantly surprised that we got as many as we did. And so we got tons of questions. Some of them were kind of similar, that you could kind of lump together. Obviously, we cannot answer all of them. We wish we could. So we've just decided to answer a few that we think can be answered in a short amount of time. So I think we're going to answer about 6 of them. And then our random question at the very end of this episode will also be one of the questions that was submitted. So technically, we're going to cover 7 of those. And then for the rest of them, we appreciate those too. And you'll probably see those crop up in future episodes because they were some really, really good questions. And some of them just need, didn't you think, like a whole episode?
Yeah.
For whatever
and some
that
of
question
them
was.
Right. And some we may not address on the podcast, but we're going to try to answer. Not that we have the answers necessarily, but we may have some suggestions. So yeah.
But we just want to say thank you to the ladies who did that, participated in this. We thought it might be fun. And so as you'll see, because we just took questions from all over the place, this is a wide variety of topics that we'll be covering in this conversation. So the first one that we're going to cover is what to do when your child seems too young or immature to be baptized, but they really want to. Now, I know In this particular case, and we're not going to mention any names with any of these questions. In this particular case, this is an incident where the child is very young. And, so it's not even talking about, we're talking about an older child. Are they ready? Are they not? And there's no magic number for spiritual maturity when it comes to someone being ready to be baptized. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
People mature at different ages. People have different backgrounds, but this is a case where the child is definitely way too young and kind of talks more about things, like they're excited about taking the communion. That might be a motivation for wanting to be baptized, or all of their friends are doing it, or, you can pick up on some of those things. But why don't you go ahead? What would you say in answer to that question?
Well, like you said, I think it's all on an individual basis, but what we did when our boys were young, and we had one in particular that was pretty insistent, and John said, okay, you don't want to dampen their enthusiasm. You don't want to say anything that's going to make them sad that they brought it up, or embarrassed to ever bring it up again. So obviously it's something I think we have to be really careful about. But when the boys were little and this came up, we said, okay, here's a correspondence course, and there's lots of them out there, but here's a correspondence course. And if you're really serious about it, we want you to work through this. And, a lot of times there's 9 or 10 little booklets in those correspondence courses. And it could be, there's a, like, Searching for Truth book could be used, something like that. And when you're finished, we'll talk about it. And then we put it on them. And basically, if you are really serious about this, and you're really determined that you want to be baptized, and that you feel like that you have sinned, and that you have sin that needs to be forgiven, then let's study about it. We're going to put this on you, and you can study, you can read through, you can answer all of these questions. And then, if you have any questions while you're doing it, you can come to us. But when you're finished, then we will talk about it. And that way they, if they were really serious about it, if they really were worried about themselves, felt that need, then we knew that they would really get after it. And they didn't, as we didn't feel like they would, until at one point they really did. One of our sons in particular, and came to John with tears in his eyes, and just he really felt like he needed to do that. So of course you want to honor that when you feel like they know what they're doing and what the purpose of it is. So that to me was kind of a good, that was John's idea, obviously. He comes up with all the good ideas, but to put it in their lap in a way to say, okay, but this is what you need to do before we're going to talk some more about it. So that was kind of what we did.
That's a great idea. Our boys were never really too young when they I think our oldest son, Gary, probably brought it up when he was about 6 or 7. But by the time they were seriously considering it, they weren't really too young for us to be concerned about that. And but for me, I was young, and I'd been talking about it for a long time because I grew up in a Christian family. And when your children are smart, and when you're young, you can recite the plan of salvation and you can say the right things, but that doesn't mean you understand those concepts.
Right.
And so, I was put off for a little while, because I was too young. And then one time I was kind of did that whole in tears, I'm ready. And my dad gave me a test. And I don't even remember the exact questions that were on it. I just know that it was a whole page of questions that I had to answer. And when he read through them, he was satisfied that I was ready, and but I was also thinking about Kyle Butt's book. Have you seen the one, Am I Ready to Be Baptized?
About that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good resource because it's kind of geared toward maturing children. So if you're just not sure, they seem like they're ready, they seem like they know, but you're still not sure. If they're reading that book and it's a little bit too much for them, they're probably not ready. But if you're reading through that book and they're understanding it, and grasping it, they're probably ready. So I feel like it's a really good gauge when somebody is just kind of seems kind of young, but seems kind of sure and insistent. It's, am I ready to be baptized by Carl? But
this
and
always came up at camp, with
yes,
kids that were there, and
yeah,
when they see their friends doing it, they think, well, I need to as well. And you don't ever want to throw a wet blanket on anything like that. And I don't think that they have to understand everything about it. When you think about those that were baptized on the on the day of Pentecost, and they didn't have enough time to understand, I think, have been taught all of the history in it, but they knew enough. So it's a judgment call,
It really is.
And so it can be a tough one.
I think you can give assurance to parents too, because parents know their children, and I'm glad you brought up the whole, you don't want to throw a wet towel on it or dampen their enthusiasm, because, we didn't read the entire question, but that's what the one asking the question was concerned about, is how do I address this without discouraging? And we never want to do that. And I just think you can say things like, I'm so proud of you for even thinking about this. I love your tender heart. And, this tells me that before long, you'll be ready. You can say things like that and let them know you're almost there, soon. And we studied with this couple not too long ago, and husband and wife were both getting baptized at the same time, and their young daughter was with them. And she had sat through the study with us at the table, but she was very young, but she's smart, and so in the moment she says, I want to be baptized too. And it was kind of hard because it was such a special day for the mom and dad. And then to try and carefully handle this sweet little girl, who wasn't old enough and obviously didn't understand what it was all about, without discouraging her. And I tried to be so careful. And I got down and I talked to her and I told her how proud I was of her, and she still cried, and so it was hard, but like you say, it's kind of a judgment call, and I think every situation is going to be different.
Yeah, because you don't want to put them off when they may be ready to where they don't ever ask again. They get to be older, and maybe their hearts are not as tender, or maybe they feel like they were rebuffed before, and so it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
Lots of prayer going into it.
Definitely. All right. So the next, number 2, was, I'm trying to think how to summarize the question, but the question is basically something I'm sure all moms can understand. And that's being pulled in different directions to where you're taking care of everybody else and you have responsibilities and obligations and you joyfully serve. But at the same time, maybe you've neglected your own self-care. And the question was really, how do I balance self-care with self-sacrifice? How do I navigate a good balance there? And involved with that also is finding ways to maybe ask your husband for help, how to do that. Is it okay to do that? I think all of that is kind of encompassed in the question that was presented.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I didn't. Mom guilt is such a heavy thing right now, and I think especially because there's social media, and we're comparing ourselves with other people, and then if we already maybe tend towards trying, maybe, I don't want to say it in such a way that sounds bad, because I don't mean it this way at all, but if we have perfectionist tendencies, then I think it's easy to kind of fall into that thinking that self-care versus selfishness, like those are not opposites.
No,
they're not. One doesn't exclude the other. But you're not selfish when you're taking care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. So I think we have to change some of the faulty thinking, I guess. And again, I don't mean that at all in a bad way, because I know it's a tender heart that's asking this, someone that just wants to honor her family and do what's right for God and for her family. But it's a struggle to have the right mindset and the right self-value, even knowing that you have to be spiritually and mentally and physically and emotionally healthy yourself before you can really support the rest of your family to be the same way. I don't know. That's kind of where I started with it. What do you think?
I thought the same thing. And it's almost like if I do practice self-care, it negates the self-sacrifice, and that's just, I don't think that's the case. And I think what makes the problem worse is all the expectations on women today, young women. And it's just unintentional, even expectations. And I think a lot of it goes back to what you said with what we see on social media. But, throw in all of the responsibilities the woman has just toward her family. And, if you're in ministry, which many of us are, those responsibilities, a lot of times women are expected to have some sort of extra job or at least a side hustle, where you're bringing in more funds. I mean, you could just continually add to, and then you've got the extracurricular activities and carpooling. And, we did an exercise in a class one time where we just listed on the whiteboard what the average woman is probably engaged in daily life. And we just filled that board, and none of them are bad things. They're all good things. But sometimes, sometimes you just kind of have to step back and say, these might be good things, but I don't think you should feel guilty if you're not doing all of them right now. Maybe it's just not the season. Do what you need to do for your priorities and your family and what's important to you. And then making sure you're taking care of yourself at the same time so that you can continue to care for your family, but if you're not doing all these extra things that are piled on, the perfect home, the perfect Instagram worthy yard, if you're not doing all of these things, don't let it weigh you down.
I thought about PTP and how their slogan is recharge, refresh, renew, something like that, all of those words, and how we would never think, at least I don't think anyone does, that preachers are being selfish by taking that time to recharge and refresh and renew. And of course, there's so many others that besides just ministers who are attending that now, but it started out to be just for preachers and their families. But there have been a lot of times over the 30 some odd years we've been doing it that I've thought, you just get to a point where you think, who's going to counsel the counselor and who's going to minister to the minister? And sometimes you just, it hits you like, I'm just drained and you need something to recharge, and something like that where you're surrounded. It's like, PTP to me is like summer camp for adults, in some ways, Bible camp, but just surrounding yourself with people that you love is, to me, is recharging. So I don't think that there's anything selfish in a vacation or in a renewal weekend. And I don't think that I know that this person would not think that others are selfish for doing something like that. And there's also that statement that I've heard, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I've heard it both ways. I've heard people criticize people who say that. Yes, you can pour from an empty cup. But it really is true. I think you can't squeeze something drier when it's completely dry. You've got to refill somehow, and you've got to decompress or relax or get a pedicure or go to bed. And I know that's hard when you're a mama and someone else doesn't want to go to bed. So it's hard in that stage. And you and I've been there and done that, and it's difficult, but sometimes you just have to do some things for yourself in order to be able to be the mom and the wife that you need to be. So we have
to. When things that are self-care, especially, and we know the writer of the question and the season of life that she's in is a very busy young children season of life. And when self-care involves the basics, like getting enough sleep, taking a bath, finding time for fitness or exercise so you can feel better about yourself, and those start to feel like luxuries,
Mhm.
because of everything you've got going on, to the point that you feel guilty about it if you're taking the time to do it. And there's nothing wrong with having a frank conversation with your husband,
Yeah.
and maybe asking for help, so that I can take this hour to do this each day, or, whatever might be lacking or falling short. Because, like you said, self care isn't something to feel guilty about. All you're doing is fueling yourself so that you can better care for everybody else in your family.
Mhm.
And, maybe spending time in quiet time in prayer, instead of always trying to squeeze in prayer and Bible study in the midst of the chaos or everything else.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I remember those times.
quiet time. You said quiet time
Quiet
is
time.
hard in certain stages of life,
Yeah.
but
You need help for it.
we laugh about, and I remember this happening a number of times when you go to the bathroom just to be by yourself. And then you
Little
see the fingers under the door. And, we could laugh about it now, but I remember crying about it sometimes. And I loved my boys. I loved being a mama. That's all I ever wanted to be. But there were just times that I remember just feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes just taking a shower, or, I mean, that's a bare necessity. That's not selfish at all.
Right.
And, she mentioned something about not wanting to intrude upon her husband's time, but, I think it's his child as well. And she would not ever hesitate to help him in his ministry. And so I think he would, and I know he would not hesitate to help her in her parenting, because it's a shared job. So
yeah,
I know myself too. There's times that I'm just really cranky before bed, and I know I can feel myself just being snappish and stuff, and I think I just need to go to bed, and I feel better in the morning. And again, when you have a baby that doesn't want to go to bed, that's a little challenging, but just simple things like that. Sometimes it's just simple, going to sit on the back porch with a glass of tea and just praying, or just enjoying nature, or just taking a drive. There's a lot of, I just think we have to do those things in order to refresh ourselves.
I do too. And just
to
a
feel
few
human.
minutes. Yeah.
So I don't know if there are some practical things, just thinking about, like, stepping outside, just removing yourself from what's stressful inside. Sometimes we have to do it. And I thought of it. There was a few passages I wrote down. Ecclesiastes 3 is the passage that says there's a time for everything. And part of that is rejoicing. And it's a good thing to enjoy life and be happy. We don't have to always be somber and serious. And Psalm 118, God made today, and we're to rejoice and be glad in it. And then Proverbs 17:22, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. And sometimes we can have a broken spirit when we're not taking care of ourselves. So
yeah,
those are just my thoughts.
Well, and this might sound silly, but I'm just trying to think back to that time and that season. And it seems like when you did get that moment, it wasn't planned for, because it's hard to plan for things when you have small children. And when that moment did come up, of maybe you have a few spare minutes, and because it was unexpected or unplanned for, it was like your mind's going, what should I do?
Yeah.
How can I make the most of this time? And I was almost wondering if it'd be helpful just to come up with a list of things, when that spare moment comes along, or when I have that few free minutes or whatever, and just write down a few things that rejuvenate you. And maybe it's playing the piano for 10 minutes, or sipping a cup of tea, with some honey in it, or in the sunshine,
Coloring.
Or coloring, or reading a book, or writing a letter, or just doing something creative. What do you enjoy that's creative? Or, it might be a power nap, or a quick shower instead of a soak in the tub, but you can use some really good body wash and, feel like a new woman, shave your legs. It's just, sometimes if you do that, and even now, this wasn't an issue when we had babies, but now what if you're squandering those free moments by being on your phone?
Mhm.
That way you can just put that away, pick one of those things out, do it, and maybe feel a little bit better in little snippets throughout the day, even if you don't get a big chunk of time.
I think that's a great idea. And they talk about when you have a new baby to sleep when the baby's asleep in the
Mhm.
daytime. And I always resisted that because
I
I
do
felt
too.
like
Need to
I
get
could
this done.
finally put a load of laundry in or whatever.
Exactly.
But the laundry's still going to be there,
Hmm.
but you may feel more refreshed if you take a little nap, or that's when you can get your shower or whatever. So I think the main thing is just please for those who are in this situation to not feel bad at all about things like taking a shower and taking care of
Hmm.
yourself, brushing your teeth, having a cup of coffee, coloring, sewing, like those things that you were talking about. Take
Yeah.
some time to mentally refresh and to
Yeah.
recharge yourself
Call a
spiritually,
friend
emotionally.
if you
Yeah.
don't mind being on the phone.
Yeah. If it doesn't stress you out.
That's right.
Like some of us. Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on that one before we
No,
move on? That was a
no.
great question. All right. Number 3. What advice would you give someone who wants to be a writer?
You tossing that to me?
Yeah.
There were several things that I jotted down. My dad enjoyed writing, and so I did a lot of proofreading, I guess, for him. My mom did more of that, obviously, but I helped with some of that, and so I think I adopted some of his writing style. I don't necessarily consider myself a writer, but I think that what I have heard other people say is to write every day. If
Mhm.
you really want to be a writer, you need to write every day, whether it's a blog or there's you can find online lots of prompts. So if you
Mhm.
don't know what to write about, you can find some prompts. Um, there was a woman here, it was one of John's mentors' wives. It was Betty Starling. She was an English teacher and she gave a writing seminar to some of the area preachers several years ago.
Oh,
And one of
neat.
the things that she did was she brought in these baby food jars filled with different things. And I wasn't there, but John told me about it. One of them had onions, chopped onions in it. I think there was some like pickles. I can't remember what all she put in there, but she had them to smell each one of the baby food jars until it triggered a memory, and then to
Hmm.
write about the memory. So I think those prompts are really important. You can submit the things that you've written to. There's so many online magazines now, and depends, I guess, on what you want to write. There was also Janie Cron did a lesson. I looked back to see if I could find a transcript or
Mhm.
recording, but in 2012 at PTP, she did a lesson on suggestions for writers. So
Oh,
not being super helpful about showing where you can find it, but I think it's probably on audio somewhere, maybe the PTP 365 or something like that. But it was
yeah.
2012. I did find that. And then the last thing that I would say is to be patient.
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't remember who asked this question. It could be someone that is young. Sometimes people are not as interested in what you have to say until you've had some more life experiences. And that
Mhm.
may or may not be wise, because a lot of people who are young have great experiences and great writing ability. But I would just say to be patient and keep
Mhm.
writing, and then let someone else find you and ask you to submit. And does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because you
Mhm.
can submit and ask, and you can self-publish, you can publish your own blog, whatever, but be patient and let yourself grow while you're learning to write.
Yeah. I kind of approached it more from a wanting to write a book
Okay.
premise. And the first thing I thought of was just do it, because that's one of those things that's really easy to say, one day I'm going to, and then you never do,
Mm-hmm.
So just start writing, just get to it, just get started. And um, before mine, I did that. I pushed it off for a while. Or I'd start it and then I'd stop and I'd start it and then I'd stop. And I only actually finished it because in one year, my New Year's resolution was I was going to finish it that year, and I set monthly goals. So, kind of like you're writing every day, I said that I was going to write at least one chapter a month. so that by the end of the year, my book would be completed. And so sometimes you have to just set really tangible goals, specific goals. And then I put seek advice, or input. And then once you start writing, definitely with, like, you were proofreading for your dad, help with editing and get somebody else to look at your work. And then I kind of went in the same direction you did about the life experiences, except I literally wrote experience life. And that involves being with people and investing with people. And we can learn a lot of things. We might know something, we might have a craft that we can hone and share and write about, but it really only becomes practical for other people when you're spending time with people and
Right.
you have empathy or sympathy, and you know what the need is. You understand people. I think a lot of times we spend time to ourselves with just our own thoughts.
Yeah.
And they might be really great thoughts that are worth writing about, but is it going to relate to anybody or be helpful for anybody if you're not actually spending time with anybody? And I mean, in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I had.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Number 4 was somebody asked for book recommendations for someone who might be going through a betrayal in their marriage. And I'll start with this one. And the ones that I came up with, the 2 that I came up with aren't addressed specifically to betrayal in marriage, but I think would help in a situation like that. And the first one is called Staying Close. The subtitle is Stopping the Natural Drift Toward Isolation in Marriage, and it's by Dennis and Barbara Rainey. And the reason I recommended that one is because it also has the progression, and it talks about how adultery typically starts off first with emotional adultery. And so it's got like warning signs, signs of isolation. If you and your spouse are experiencing this, it might be warning signs. And I think that if you're on the other side of that, it's still helpful because you can look back and say, maybe that's how we landed here.
Yeah.
And the other one is, the book title is just simply Marriage. And the subtitle is 6 Gospel Commitments Every Couple Needs to Make. And I think I've already mentioned this on here, but I'm not sure. But it's by Paul David Tripp. And I wanted to share this one because it is by far the best book on marriage Neil and I've ever read. And we've read a lot of them. And it is just so good. It really gets to the heart of the matter, even when you think your marriage is going great. And you read this together as a couple first thing in the morning, and your toes will be a little bit bruised, but it just gives you so much to think about and really helps you see good introspection. So I asked Neil, because he has a bigger library and deals more with counseling situations, and he recommended one called The Fight of Your Life, Manning Up to the Challenge of Sexual Integrity. And that's by Clinton and Lacer, Laaser. He says it has a whole chapter on just that. And then he said a more clinical diagnosing approach is the Gottman book, 10 Principles for Doing Effective Couples Therapy, which deals with atonement, attachment, and attunement phases in the treatment of affairs. He said it's pretty insightful. And then he says this might be the one you mentioned. Okay, the third one he mentioned might be the one. Did you say Chapman? Okay, I'll let you say it then.
Well, it's called Loving Your Spouse When You Feel Like Walking Away.
Oh, no, this is a different one. Okay,
well,
so
Gary
the one
Chapman is anything Gary Chapman is good.
Yeah, okay, so the one Neil mentioned is by Chapman, and it's What Husbands and Wives Aren't Telling Each Other. And he said it's principles, it's more along the lines of principles instead of necessarily tackling that issue directly. But okay, so what did you have?
Well, just that one. I didn't have a whole lot of. I tend to not read books like this, and I should, because it would be helpful. But Gary Chapman, I just looked at Focus on the Family because they usually have really good material, and John recommended that too. But that one is called Loving Your Spouse When You Feel Like Walking Away, and it isn't only about adultery, but that is part of it. And then there's another one that I have not read, but Focus on the Family recommend. It's called Anatomy of an Affair. It sounds like the one you were talking about. This one's written by Dave Carter, Carder. And so I think, if it's something you've already experienced, it may not be as helpful, but for those who are trying like we all should try to avoid it, just being aware of how those things happen. And then there was one other that I thought of, and I have not read it, but I've heard some people talking about it, and I can't necessarily say I recommend it because I haven't read it and I don't know. But I imagine there's some helpful stuff in it. It's Lisa TerKeurst. She's the one that does the Proverbs
Forgive.
31 ministries. But her husband was unfaithful to her, and she wrote a book, and it's titled something like It Wasn't Supposed to Be This Way, or It Wasn't Supposed to Happen This Way. So maybe in some ways that might be something that would be helpful, just to know that you're not alone in the way that you feel. But again, I don't know. I'm not necessarily recommending it because I don't know everything about it, but it might be something that would be helpful. So,
well, and some, I haven't read all of these either because I had to get some from Neil, but the ones that I have, it's encouraging to me that most of them address in some way infidelity in marriage, and then talk about how if both are committed, you can come out stronger than ever. You can, love, trust, grow, serve together. God is in the healing business. And we're not really needing to go into that conversation. We're just answering this question, but
we do want to be encouraging and say that it is possible. We know that it's possible.
We know that it's possible. And we both know couples. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the fifth question, what does fulfilling Titus 2:4 look like in various seasons of life? I know sometimes the issue is that young women seem to not want to be taught or to listen. So this verse is about the older women teaching the younger women. So how can both young and older women make this easier by working together to be taught or to learn?
Bridging the gap, huh?
That's right.
Well, so you want me to start?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the most important thing, maybe not the most important thing, but a very practical thing and a very important thing, is to develop a relationship. Because if you try to teach someone or influence someone, or what's worse, if you try to rebuke someone without a relationship, it's going to go nowhere. In fact, you're going to repel someone that way. So I think of, we talked about this, I guess it was the last podcast, because we were talking about friendship, and thinking about all of the older women in my life who I have learned things from because I had a relationship with them. So to me, the older women instructing the younger women, you have to have a relationship, and you can't do that without spending time together, without showing interest in one another, in both ways. It's not just the older reaching out to the younger, but it's like the one that asked the question was saying, that it goes both ways. So I'm thinking that we all need to be open and willing to develop a relationship with each other. That was one of the things. What all would you come up with?
That's exactly what I put. I literally jotted down build relationships, and that the older people that I learned from, I look back to my being a brand new wife and thinking I knew everything already. And the older women that I learned from, it's because they built a relationship with me. They were very intentional and had me into their home. And I learned from them because I was doing things with them, in their home, in their kitchen, making visits with other people. We had, a woman that would take me making visits with her, and, just very intentional building of a relationship. I think back to what it must have been like when Titus 2:4 was written, and they spent a lot of time together. They fellowshiped, they were in each other's homes. Maybe this was easier in generations past when moms and daughters and grandmas and friends and neighbors all came together to do life, and women especially spent time together, whether it was snapping beans or quilting or whatever they were doing. It seems like they were side by side. And so I think the challenge is in answering this question, being very intentional. How are we going to build those relationships when we lead more separate lives? And it's still the same answer. To me, it's still just as easy to, if you're an older woman, build a relationship with them by taking an interest in them as a person, in their family, and their children, having them into your home, and doing things with them. And, I imagine that, or I've wondered if maybe young women don't reach out as much because they can just Google everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask an older woman or your grandma a question because you can just say, "Hey, Alexa." And
Yeah.
the answer is provided. But we know there are so many things about life and love and relationships that Alexa's not going to have the answer for.
Yeah.
But I think that with the whole unwillingness thing, it's understandable to me for young women to resist being taught by the older women if there is zero relationship there. I completely agree with you. I think we need to make it a natural part of life for our children as we're bringing them up to do things with older people, mix it up.
Yeah. Do you feel like what age do you feel like mentally? I know it's a strange question, but I've thought about this lots of times. Like, okay, I'm 55 years old. And so someone who is 25 is going to be like, you're old.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was 25, honestly, I thought 55 was pretty old. Maybe
Yeah,
not
do you
old.
go back and look at pictures and go, I thought they were old and they were actually the age I am
I'm
right
younger.
now? Yes.
Or they are younger. Yeah. So, but I think I would say to younger women that are listening to this, we don't feel, maybe physically, but we don't feel that much older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some people do, but I have always I just kind of feel like I'm about 30. My brain. I'm kind of like
when you
30,
said that,
35.
I thought, I feel like I'm stuck in my 30s.
Yeah. So mentally and emotionally, and I just kind of feel like that's where I land most of the time, is that I'm still a young woman. And sometimes I pass myself in a mirror and go, oh, no, you're not 30 anymore. But I resist, going to the being, I just don't want to be, forgive me for saying this, but I don't want to be a cranky old lady, because sometimes that can happen, and no one wants to be around someone like that. No one wants to listen to someone like that. That is not showing the joy of being a Christian. So I think my point in saying that is that for the young women out there who, and it was a young woman that asked this, realize that we don't really feel that much older than you. But yes, we do have life experiences more than you do. And we can remember being where you are. Maybe not everything, but I also think for our age, remembering that not everyone thinks like we do. And we've had this conversation before. Not everyone has the exact same thoughts that I do. Not everyone has had the experiences I've had. Not everyone thinks the same way that I think. And so if I remind myself of that, it makes me more open to hearing and listening and understanding that someone might struggle with something that I haven't struggled with. And, or maybe I did struggle with that, and here's how I tried to deal with it. But also I think for older women saying, I made mistakes, and this is what I wish I would have done differently. And younger women being open to hearing what those are.
Well, and God knows what he's doing. And if that command is in there, there's value in it. But I imagine that value goes both ways. Yeah. The younger women do have things that they can learn from the older women, and it'll be probably things that are unexpected, that you can benefit as a young person from spending time with women who are older than you. But God did put that responsibility on the older women. But for older women to fulfill that and to be willing, I've heard that complaint that, maybe it's a young woman who's trying to organize a ladies' Bible class and get teachers, and none of the older women are willing to teach.
Yeah. And they'll say, I've done that. I've done my time.
Yeah. They'll say, how can we learn from the older women when, the only people willing to teach are in their 20s, but there's got to be value on that for the older woman too, who is willing to take the time to teach, who's willing to invest in the lives of younger women and get to know them as people and love them and love their families and appreciate what you can gain too from developing that relationship.
Yeah. There was something that I read several years ago that was along these lines, and I tried to go find it and I couldn't. But basically, it was saying that maybe the younger generation needs to realize that the older generation did things for a reason because they learned something from the way they did it. But then again, the older generation needs to acknowledge that there are some valuable new things out there. And there's things that I struggle to understand. I have never figured out Snapchat, and I don't necessarily want to, although I know some people communicate that way.
Yeah.
It just is, it's like I can't get it. And I feel like I'm fairly technologically okay, but it's a rousing pat on the back for myself, isn't it? But there are some good things, some new good things, and we can't, as the older, and I don't think we're the older generation, we're kind of the middle generation, for us to always go around saying, well, we did it this way and it was better this way, when there are some better things that have come along since we've been moms or since we were young. So being open to it.
Yeah. So I would say that practical advice would be, if you're a young person, have the older women into your home. You pursue that relationship too, and get to see them and value them for who they are and what they've learned. And if you're an older person, same for you. Invite those young women into your home, take them out for coffee, or get to know their family. Just build the relationship.
And don't be disdainful or sarcastic, either side, or resentful or suspicious. And I was trying to think of some practical things that I have seen. Like, one of them is, the generation above us in particular, with the china and the fancy dishes and the table that's set just so, and it's beautiful and it's fun to do that. And you like to do that. But then the generation, maybe my generation or the one after me, is more paper plates. And there's value in that, but not being critical of each other. And I've heard it both ways. The younger generation says, why would I want to, set a table? Why would I care if there's 2 forks or whatever? Well, maybe you don't understand it, but you don't have to understand it to respect it. Just be okay with it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no sin in it. It's just, they enjoy doing things that way. Let them do it. And the same is true on the other side for an older woman. If someone puts a paper plate in front of you, don't say that they disrespect me because they didn't bring out their good dishes. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, things are different, and there's value in both.
If you ever catch yourself as an older woman seeing the behavior or thought processes of a younger woman and kind of internally rolling your eyes, here's what I've learned as an older woman. You don't remember your youth accurately.
Yeah.
You just don't. And when I look back on my young married days, I feel like I was mature for my age, and then I've since run across a little diary that I kept when I was first married and read it. And it is mortifying. Absolutely mortifying. The drama, of the way I wrote and the way I wrote about my marriage and my days. And it's just so cringy. It's so cringy. And I look back and I go, I was that way? I really? So, maybe show a little grace and patience. And if you think that something seems a little dramatic or immature or whatever, just remember that was you at one point.
Yeah, very definitely so.
Yeah, you only thought you knew what you were doing when you were young.
Exactly. Well, I think the key, like you said, grace, show each other grace and show each other respect. And I think if both sides will do that, then we'll learn from each other. But I mean, like you said, God's command is there for a reason. And the older women are and I looked at the definition, to instruct in wisdom. So it's possible to try to instruct without wisdom, but it's not going to go very far. So instruct, to do your training and your instructing in wisdom. And it's even better when you're asked to do it, although it's not specifically said that way, but it makes it easier for the older women to teach when they're asked to their opinions. And it's an honor to be able to do that.
It is.
Yeah.
And be someone that young women want to come to.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is number 6. What to do if your home congregation still only has Sunday morning services? So it sounds like in this particular case, it's a very small congregation, mostly older members. And so here's a family that still has small children at home, but they're still only meeting once a week since COVID. And so that's a tough situation to be in. And I imagine that congregation is not the only one. And so the question really is, what are some ways, how would you handle that situation? Or what are some ways that maybe you could build up your children's Bible knowledge during this time or whatever? So, and just a brief backstory there, this person has spoken to the elders and received an explanation. So, in this situation, there's not another congregation close by. And so, anyway, what can she do?
Yeah.
So, that one was a little bit challenging, I thought, but the first thing that came to my mind is to remember that the responsibility for Bible training falls on the shoulders of parents.
Yeah.
And that's probably not an expected answer there, but I'm hoping it'll be encouraging. That God gives that responsibility to parents anyway, that God put that responsibility in the home for our children's training and instruction in the Bible. And so this is just an opportunity to bulk up that Bible teaching. But I was thinking that family can still invite friends, your children's friends into your home to do Bible crafts together or Bible things together. If you want your children to spend more time with other kids in a setting like that, and that maybe this would be a good time to make lots of visits into the homes of other members of that congregation, and to also have those members into your home for meals or game nights or singing nights, just beefing up the fellowship and, singing and praying together. And then the last thing I thought of was that this would also be a time to be patient and understanding with the leadership, especially if it is a congregation that's mostly made up of older members, and to pray.
Pray. Pray for everyone involved.
Exactly. What did you think?
Well, mainly the same thing you did. I thought, here's an opportunity for a family to grow as a family, and to possibly invite others in and turn a difficult situation into a good one. I thought maybe, and I've seen this at Bear Valley. If I understood it correctly, Amy Woolley, she wanted some Bible classes to start back up. And this was, probably late 2021 on Wednesday night. And so she asked the elders if she could teach one. And so they okayed it, and she started it and kind of got the ball rolling again, and people got excited. And I wasn't down there, I was always with the student wives, but I think being frustrated about it, which I can understand being frustrated.
So she was teaching it at the church building, a class for women at the church building?
Well, class for kids.
Oh, class for kids.
Yeah, she was teaching a class for her kids, because at the time there was one class, but the kids were coming in the adult class.
Oh, okay.
And she really wanted I felt the same way. I felt like kids are missing out on time together. And there's, without getting into all of the COVID stuff, there's just so many different opinions about how we handled things. Here's an opportunity to extend grace to leadership, like you said, and also to show your children. And I'm not sure how old the children are in this situation, but regardless, to show your children that you respect what your leadership said, but yet you're still going to teach them a Bible class. You begin your own Bible class on Wednesday night, whether it's in your home, or ask if it's okay to do it at the church building, and just tell them that you're happy to do it and be happy to do it, and if it's okay to invite other people to come in. And so I think it's just an opportunity to to still have Bible class for
Mhm.
your child, for your children, and to teach having a respectful and a good attitude
Yeah.
about how you go about it.
Good
So that's
thoughts.
kind of where the only
All
thing I
right.
could really think of.
Okay, so that's the questions that we chose to cover. And we're going to end with our random question, which was also another question, but we thought it would make a great random question. So we're actually answering 7 questions. So
Yeah.
the random question that we chose was, what is your favorite company meal or meal to take to someone?
Okay. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think I've told you that I feel like I have almost lost the ability to cook just because I'm out of practice. But so I was given Pioneer Woman's most recent cookbook, which is called, I'm looking at a picture of it. It's called Pioneer Woman Cooks Super Easy.
Mhm.
And so I have made this meal, I think, for 4 or 5 of the last people that came into our home because it's good
It
and it's
must be
easy.
really good.
But it's in that book, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a spinach ravioli lasagna,
Oh, yeah.
but it's made with ravioli, not lasagna noodles. So
Mhm.
it's made with, you put she actually does it vegetarian. She doesn't put any meat in it, but I always
Mhm.
put some lean ground meat, and there's a layer of the meat in the whatever kind of sauce you like. She calls for a vodka sauce, but you could use whatever kind of pasta sauce you want, and you could make your own. And then a layer of spinach, and then you cook some of the frozen ravioli for half
Mhm.
the amount of time that it calls for, and then you spread a layer of that, and then you put mozzarella cheese, and then you dot it with basil pesto on top, and then you bake it, and
Yum.
it's really, really good.
That sounds really
So
good.
that would be it's a good company meal, and it's also an easy thing to take to someone. You can just grab a bag of frozen garlic bread and a bag of salad, and then you have your meal.
Good one. You'll
Yeah.
have to share that recipe in the
Okay.
looking up group.
Yep.
So the kids always talk about when we had company, I made the same meal all the time. But I've only done it, I think, one time since we've been here. So um, this meal, not company. But I always made cheesy chicken and rice, and I made a green salad, like greens salad with mandarin oranges and sliced almonds,
Mhm.
kind of a salad, and green beans, yeast rolls, deviled eggs, and deep dark chocolate cake. That was company meal.
Yeah.
Most often. And then usually if I'm taking a meal to somebody, I do poppy seed chicken just because
That's always a favorite.
yeah, it's comforting.
Mhm.
Usually if you're taking a meal to somebody, there's a need there for some reason or another. And it's just a good comforting meal, usually with some mashed potatoes and a bagged salad
Mhm.
and a loaf of French bread, something easy, some easy dessert, and put things in those disposable aluminum pans so they don't have to turn dishes. And we like to buy those big stacks at like Sam's or Costco, and they come with their lids. So
Yeah.
then you can take a Sharpie and write a sweet little message on each of the dishes or a scripture or something, but that's typically what I do.
They also sell those little small, they're about, I don't know, 8 inches long and 4 inches wide. The little black containers with individual lids, so you could
Mhm.
make individual sizes that they can just stick in the freezer if they wanted to, rather than putting
That's a
it in a
good
big one.
idea. Yeah, I just bought a
So,
stack of those, but I hadn't thought about it for that.
yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all of our questions. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on our first episode of our second season.
Mhm.
And we invite you to head over to Facebook and check out Looking Up, our group over there, where we will share pictures of things that we've talked about. We love to interact with our listeners over there. Also on Instagram, Carla, you do a great job with keeping the social media stuff going so we can sort of hang out virtually with everybody and make friends. And we always appreciate hearing from you. If you have thoughts on any of these questions that we've discussed today, we love hearing your thoughts. If you want to share your favorite company meal or meal that you take to somebody, we would love to get your ideas. I always like seeing what other people do for that.
Maybe we'll start a thread with that on Monday.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. And until next time, Carla.
Keep looking up.
It was a great conversation. I've missed you. I've missed this.
Me too. It's good to see you again.
Take care. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.